Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Art DiBenedetto. I'm very honored to be the superintendent of schools in Hippackong, and I always enjoy talking before my clientele. I'm here to try to explain what the school district is trying to do in terms of a referendum. I'm going to essentially start from the basics and try to explain each and every aspect of what we're doing. The word referendum has a Latin root. The word it comes from is R-E-F-E-R-R-E. I can't pronounce it, so I'm not going to try. But what that meant in those times when it evolved was a proposal for approval. And the Latin root reminded me of the word referee. And I looked up the etymology of the word referee, and sure enough, it came from the same root. And that means to judge. And that's what a referendum does. We are asking the voters in the borough of Hippackong to judge whether or not the school district has put forth questions and demonstrated the need that involve the cost. The referendum will be held on September 26th, 2023, at the regular polls, the same polling times. And between now and then, my job is to try to educate the community on, first of all, on voting. I am not telling people to vote yes. I'm not telling people to vote no. But my job is to educate people so that they can make an intelligent decision on whether or not the district has put forth questions that are deserving of a yes vote. Our school buildings. Tulsa Trail was built in 1969. Durbin Avenue in 1971. The high school was finished in 1969, and the middle school, is the baby school of the district, was built in 1980. So even our newest school is 43 years old. A significant part of the referendum has to do with replacing original parts of those buildings. For example, the windows in Durbin Avenue and in the middle school are original to those buildings. We can no longer get hardware parts for those windows. They just don't make them. And when the windows fail, they have to be permanently shut. And that does not help us in terms of airflow. Additionally, at the middle school, the univents are over 30 years old. The units in Tulsa Trail are the original ones from the building in 1969. We have underground storage tanks at Durbin and the middle school that must be replaced. They've outlived their life expectancy. Problems that accrue from that center on getting insurance, worrying about a leak, and therefore they have to be replaced. As you know, we replaced the high school tank right on the other side of that wall this year using local money. It cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. But as the tanks age, they cannot pass the inspections that they must go through legally. The roof at Tulsa Trail delaminated last year in a storm, and emergency work reattached it, but it must be replaced. The roof at the high school has exceeded its life expectancy. In multiple areas of the roofs at different sections, there are 2, 3, or 4 layers of old roofing that went over the original roofing. We've replaced the roof over the auditorium recently, but at this time, we are in dire straits in terms of roofing. If you were to stand outside these windows and look at the roof, you would notice that it's shrinking back. That's how old it is. It's not a functional roof. Can we survive? Yes. We can survive for a year or two. We put up with leaks. If you have children who play on the rec basketball or soccer teams that practice indoors, you'll know that when it rains outside, there are pails blocking access to the gym floor because of the leaks that take place. So what we're looking to do is ask people to vote yes or no on the questions about our referendum. There are two questions on a referendum. The first one is a major one that has a significant cost to it, and I'm going to briefly go over each and every aspect of the projects that are a part of this referendum. Nothing new is being built. This is a repair operation and a replace operation. We are not trying to beautify the schools. I could easily add $10 million to the referendum if the board said, beautify the school. We're not intending to do that. The schools are built well, but they're not young. And things have become decrepit in some areas. So there are two questions. The first question is the major one. The second one is of less expense and concentrates mostly on one school. If question 1 passes and question 2 pass, the board then has the ability to go out and bond for the total amount of money that the referendum costs. If question 1 passes and question 2 fails, the board then can go ahead with the projects in question 1. If question 1 fails and question 2 passes, the referendum does not work. So therefore, it would be a failed effort. The total cost of all these things is $26+ million. And the first question that comes to mind, and it's a very legitimate one, how the heck is taxpayers going to put forth $26 million in taxes? The district is looking to bond things over 20 years. So the district would have to repay the $26 million in that 20-year period. But fortunately, we're dealing with something that we're not used to, and that's called state aid. If you've been around town, you know that our state aid has gone from $12 million a year. We're down to 4 now, and it'll go down more next year. However, with a referendum, if we are successful, anywhere between 32 and 40% of that $26 million will be put forth in state aid. The district would still have to borrow $26 million, but each year it would get a state aid check to help pay off the principal and the interest. Why am I saying such a range of numbers, 32 to 40%? A lot of the amount of aid depends on what happens to other referenda in the state on that day. And a lot of it depends on the projects that we're doing. Each and every one of the projects delineated in the handout is state aidable, with one exception, and that has to do with an outbuilding near the football field. So anyone who says, and I've seen, I'm blessed to have people share Facebook posts and things with me, and the referendum is not going to cost the taxpayers $26 million. It will cost more, towards $15 million, because of the state aid circumstance. And as I said, the district will take 20 years to pay that back. What does that do to taxes? On the average home in Hopatcong, which is about $216,000 plus, the tax rate that would be affected by $200 a year for 20 years. So I read on Facebook someplace that this referendum, if it passes, will cost me $1,500 a year. Your house would have to be assessed at $16.5 million to pay that much money on a yearly basis. So what I'm trying to do here is put forth facts, correct discrepancies, and try to give information that is usable so that people can make decisions. Your handout is currently on the website. I will add to it after tonight if I get questions that are excellent questions, and I know I will, and they need to be answered. I'll add them to the document. Everything will be on the website on a constant basis, and it will be updated. There will be a series of single-issue meetings with this, and a referendum tends to evolve. Questions continue to come up, and as people learn more, they ask more questions. So the beauty of the many meetings, the beauty of the website is that we can continually share information. And if the information derives out of citizens' questions, that's the best kind of information. All right, I'm going to go through the projects very quickly. The sketches that are referred to on your handout are on the website. I didn't want to kill another tree and copy all the sketches too, so I'll refer you to the school website. If you're interested in seeing the sketch, they're on the website. Question number 1. The first 2 items are Durban area items. The underground oil tank replacement, as I stated, they've outgrown their usefulness. And number 2, exterior window replacement. If you recall, I said those windows are original windows. If they break, we have to lock them. We cannot get hardware to change them. At the middle school, you also have the underground heating tank, and you have exterior door and hardware replacement. That is both a safety issue and a security issue. Also at the middle school, the interior gym doors need replacement. They have been there since 1980. Our biggest cost is the high school roof. Please understand that the estimates that are put forth in the to us from the state, they ask us to give an estimate of what the cost is going to be. Our architect and engineer give us a high-end cost, A, because the roof projects won't be done for at least 2 years if the referendum passes, and B, you have a continual circumstance of inflation. So the costs for the roof alone at the high school to replace the entire structure except for the top of the auditorium is $8,155,000. Again, that is an estimate that is a high-cost estimate. Better to be caught high cost than low cost. If you've been to our auditorium, you'll realize that the rigging, lighting, and sound, with the exception of sound, we have the original stuff in there. The rigging and the lighting needs updating, and I don't know if any of you have been to some of the drama and musical performances that our kids put on, but they're one heck of a show, and it's a well-deserved circumstance to try to upgrade the high school auditorium. In the middle school, fire door and hardware replacement. At Durban, exterior window facade replacement. Okay, if you look at the windows at Durban, there's concrete over them where it's worn out. Very bad in the winter in terms of drafts, and it doesn't help that the windows are original to the building. At the middle school, the unit ventilators need replacement. Now understand, there's no air conditioning for most of the parts of the middle school. The replacement of the unit ventilators will allow us not only to heat the building, but also to air condition the building. Science lab replacement renovations at the high school. When the district sold the Hudson Maxim School, the board was kind enough to allow us to renovate one science room right down the hall here. It came out beautifully. However, the other two science rooms in the building are original to the school, which is 1964. That's not quite as old as I am, but it's pretty close. There's some upgrading at the stadium field in terms of grading and drainage, sound and scoreboard, and there are restorations at the Hilltop field, well used by the community and the school. So the restorations are a part of that. The high school roof is $8 million. The Hilltop field restoration is $182,000. So there's a wide range in the different projects. Paving repairs. Any place you go in the district, you better have your seatbelt on. There's bumps and bruises in the roadway which are significant, and paving repairs are a vital part of this. At the middle school, window replacement. At the high school, C-wing window replacement. And at the high school, C-wing exterior masonry repairs. If you walk down the alley outside the gym, you'll see the masonry under the windows is in pretty poor condition. Again, that's not a major item. That particular item is a $57,000 item, but it's part of what we need to do. Remember, we're not making it a beautiful school, we're making it a functional school. We're making it a school or schools that are safe for kids and staff. At the middle school, we've been asked to consider putting in an exterior basketball court and playground fencing by the community, and that's something the board has chosen to do. And at the high school, the auxiliary gym roof replacement, again, not a major cost, that would be $286,000. But the totals of those come to about $22 million, and about $9 million would be funded by the state, reducing the 22 by 9. Question 2 deals mainly with the Tulsa Trail School. Again, that roof must be replaced. If the district lost hundreds of kids in enrollment and the board decided to sell the school, we couldn't sell it until we put a new roof on it at a cost of $1.4 million. There's also the stadium field house renovations for $156,000. Unit ventilators at Tulsa Trail, again, they are original from '69, and the electrical system upgrade at Tulsa Trail, which would be a $367,000 project. So question 2 has a cost of about $4,300,000, and it puts the school back on the map in terms of facilities, which is something that is vital, A, to safety, A, to comfort, B, to comfort. People ask, why are there no instructional items on this referendum? You can't put instructional items on a facilities referendum, okay? Asking the voters to vote on curriculum, instruction, and programs used to be something that took place for many years until about 6 years ago when they stopped the necessary voting and put a 2% cap on. But you cannot include any instructional items on something that's being run out of your facilities operation. Your handout includes the very specific resolution that had to be passed in order for the referendum to go ahead. It's very wordy, it's very legal, but it is understandable if you read it. I had to read it really slowly and carefully before I understood it, but I finally got it. It was not something that I wrote, or Mr. Hollenbeck wrote, or the board wrote. That has to be done by attorneys. Please note that the board has a financial group giving us all the financial information, and has an architect/engineering group that helps us with all of the submittals to the state. So that's a general description of what we're trying to do, I'm going to open this up to questions very shortly. And please, don't be shy. Don't hesitate to ask a question. There is no such thing as a question that doesn't make sense, especially with a complex circumstance like this. Any question is a functional and deserved question. Social media, again, one of the things that came to my attention has to do with the people insisting that we close one school and consolidate. So let's say we did that. Let's say we decided to close Tulsa Trail School, but we still have to spend $1.4 million to keep it functional as a building, perhaps to sell it. And consolidation is not the problem. It doesn't solve the problem. We still have gigantic needs, $22 million worth, at the other three buildings. Why would we close Tulsa? Well, enrollment is down. Well, I am happy to report to you that enrollment went up for the first time this year in many years, and it is going to continue to go up. One of our neighboring districts had, I'm going to say this number, I heard this secondhand, but I believe it's accurate. One of our neighboring districts last year had 900 enrollees between the end of school and the beginning of school. They lost kids through graduation, move-outs, etc., but they had over 900 new kids. That town is housed out, and we're getting the overflow from that group. And I'll tell you, we have some exceptionally hardworking families moving into town. It says it right in the town bulletin board or electronic board. I call them bulletin boards, I'm sorry. It says Hapatcong is one of the 10 most affordable towns in the state, and it is. And people are buying houses, and people are having kids. So our enrollment, I don't believe last year was an aberration. I do believe that it's going to continue to go up again. Let's start off with questions. That may lead to additional conversations. Yes, ma'am. Please speak up. I'll try to repeat.
Why are there two referendums? I feel like the Tulsa Trail was singled out over the second one. All of the Tulsa Trail is
Excellent question. The question is, why are there two questions on a referendum? And the answer is simple. If enrollment decreased, we would still have the option of putting aside that building and selling it, okay? We don't think that's going to happen, but we did two separate questions for that particular reason, okay, to see what happens. I don't believe it's going to happen, but if it did, if it did want to close and question 2 did not pass, we have the ability to sell it. If question 2 passes, we cannot sell the school for 20 years until the debt is paid off. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about state aid. Actually, 2 questions. It says that traditionally it's between 36 and 40%.
Right.
But the bond questions say that it's going to equal 40%. Is that just what they have to say?
That is what the state law is supposed to do. The state never funds its legal responsibility. If you're getting a pension from the state, they never fund the total amount of the pension that they're supposed to. They never give aid 100% of what they say they're going to give. The law says 40%. Not too many schools get 40%. That's a great question.
And then the other question is, can the state renege on their aid in any one particular year?
The state of New Jersey renege on their aid? I can't believe you said that. If a referendum passes, legally they have an obligation because that was part of the whole legal process. So there is an obligation, but I don't believe the state can renege on their debt service aid. The state has a lot of money in its coffers for different reasons, including the federal monies that they gave us through during COVID. The state still has billions of dollars of that. And meanwhile, we're getting cut 90% of our state aid. Yes, sir.
What the referendums pass,
Yes.
and do they already have, a contractor or general contractor?
Good question. The question is, if the referendum passes, do we already have contractors? The answer to that is no, because we're not allowed to go out and get contractors until the bonds sell. All right, so let's say the referendum passes. The board will have prepared to sell municipal bonds, which are tax-free, and anybody has the ability to buy them. But once those $26 million in bonds are sold, we then can go out, and we have to go out to bid, which is a very complex process because it's the state process, but it's a legitimate one, and we go out to bid, and at that point, then we could go through contractors. Sir in the back.
Yeah. What's plan B? If this fails, if the other 3,500 households in the same zone, what's the plan?
I caught you up to the 3,500.
So, let's say that the rest of the town says, no, don't raise my taxes, don't care, kids can go to another school. What's plan B?
If the referendum fails, what is Plan B? That's a detailed answer, and it would be a school at a time. So what would happen is this. A, priority would be to fix the Tulsa Trail roof. The board has been trying to save its money in its capital reserve for capital projects. We are almost at the point where we might have enough money to do a good portion of the Tulsa Trail roof. We would then prioritize the list of projects that you have in terms of safety and security, and we would have to pay for those out of local funds, but that would take literally years and years and years. Because A, there is a cap on how much we can raise taxes, and B, even if there was no cap, we would be raising taxes more than the referendum would, and we're not going to do that. That answer, is that a start, sir? You got an additional question to that, sir? Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm looking at this list. I know most of these things didn't happen overnight.
Right?
Issues of buildings. Why haven't some of these repairs been done on previous budget?
The question is, this stuff did not happen overnight. Why didn't these repairs get done or in the courses of the year? Excellent question. In 2003, there was a referendum put forth to the voters that was rejected. That referendum has nothing to do with this, but it started a series of no votes on budgets. For years, excuse me, for years, budgets did not pass in HPACCOM. And they were not only not passed, they were cut. The school district and the town both met, coordinated cuts. It was an ugly process. I was not here then, so only what I read or what I hear from people who were there, I'm trying to portray this to you. But budgets failed, cuts were made. You can't do facilities when cuts are made. Eventually, they stopped the vote on the budget. But at that time, the district was significantly losing enrollment. Okay, remember, our enrollment went down 45% over the 12-year period. You cannot raise taxes during a time of enrollment decrease, and as a result, these problems built. Now, did we solve any of these problems? This list would be a lot longer if the board had not done its due diligence on certain things. But bottom line is this: between the no votes on the budget and the enrollment decrease, we could not raise taxes enough to do that. That's why Plan B would have to be prioritizing the worst-case scenario first and trying to work on that, and then going to the next project a year after, or try to do two at once. It's not easy. And I would bet that if the whole thing went down, even with enrollment increasing, we might have to close the school. Yes, ma'am.
I know that the state aid has,
I'm half deaf, I apologize.
I know that the state aid has steadily been declining. Can you comment on how that may affect any of this process over the next few years?
If I understand the state correctly, we have one additional year of state aid cuts after 23-24. Things should even out then. I am hopeful, and I don't really get hopeful with the state of New Jersey, but last year, when they cut the state aid so much that districts were having trouble putting together a budget, they restored some of it. And I'm hoping that they had a lesson which says you can't cut 90% of 40% of somebody's budget, like a Patcong, like Kittatinny, like Vernon. All those districts have been crushed. So they're two separate things. I honestly am hopeful that next year the legislature will do away with the last year of cuts. I may be a fool, but that's one reality. The referendum is a separate reality. Good question. Yes, sir.
Earlier you touched on combining schools, districts.
Say it again, sir.
Earlier you touched on combining schools, closing school and combining them,
Here?
like high school, like the high school, or say the high school, combining with another district.
Oh, okay. The question centers on the possibility of combining with another district. That is a possibility. That was well investigated by Dr. Piccirillo when he was superintendent. He found no takers. But I don't believe that's a righteous scenario. I do believe that if we had to do that, if we could not fix the school and the roofs began failing, and I had to get the high school kids out of here, I have another district that would take them. You'd be in a tough situation, though, because you'd have to maintain this building, and you'd have to pay tuition in the other district. That is not a money saver. The cost per pupil in Hapakong, despite the fact that the sale of Hudson Maxim and the cell tower added $3 million to our budget, is finally reasonable. It's finally less than other districts in the county. Yes, ma'am. In the bleachers over there.
You may or may not know this, and maybe it has nothing to do with anything, but what is the value of Tulsa? Do we know what it, like, if you were to sell Tulsa?
The value of the schools?
Yeah, do we know?
The question is, what is the value of the school? And I don't have that information here. I do have it in my office. I don't want to make a foolish guess, but after selling Hudson Maxim and in the process of selling the garage, I have an idea. I believe that school could get approximately $2.5 million. And if we have to put $1.4 million roof on, what's the use of selling it? Additionally, this is important. If you close one of the schools, what are you going to do? You're going to have to put the 7th grade here. We're not designed to have a 7th and an 8th grade class in this building. Kittatinny does have that, but when the school was built, it was built with that purpose. We would have difficulty in a separation of kids in 7th and 8th grade to the high school kids. What does it do to Durban? Well, the board paid for a feasibility study which said that K1 and 2 should go to Durban. The only problem is you could put all the homerooms in Durban, but what do you do with the significant number of special education classes, of the significant number of English language learner classes, and with the number of basic skills classes that we have? Then they would add another grade or 2 to the middle school. The middle school it's hard for me to say this because it's my doing. I met with another district today to go over something, and they were asking me about a PACON, and they said, how many administrators do you have? I said, 7. He said, well, how many you have with the schools and the central office? I said, 7. We have 4 administrators, 1 in each building, no vice principals. We have a business administrator, a director of special services, and myself. That's a problem. And it has to be that way, otherwise more teachers would have lost their jobs. But when I got here, there were 14 administrators here, 2 of whom lost their jobs just before I got here, and 5 others who've lost their jobs since, because of what we're trying to do. And it becomes a money issue, but I have 1,400 plus kids to educate, and I will do whatever I have to do to try to get them to the point where we have given them a satisfactory education, just as I got when I was a kid in Brooklyn, just as you got when you were a kid, wherever you were brought up. We can do it. I don't know how I got on that one. Who asked that question? Yes, sir.
Is there any one building that can house all of the kids?
No, sir. One building could not physically hold all the spaces, even with the most conservative estimate that would be put forth by an architect. Not possible. Good question, though. Anything else? I'll be back here in 2 weeks. You have my email address on that handout. I welcome questions. If you're shy, verbally, don't be shy, writing. Type it out, send it in, I'll get you an answer, and I'll post the question and an answer on the website. God bless. Thank you for being interested in what we're trying to do. Have a great night.